Hello friends, Axel here. Let's talk Steam controller versus 8BitDo. Mostly focused on the Ultimate 2, but we're also going to be talking about the Pro 3 somewhat. And the main focus of this comparison is going to be on the thumbsticks between each, because these three controllers are the only ones that I have that have TMR thumbsticks. We're also going to be focusing on the D-pad, because the 8BitDo controllers here have what I would consider, before I got the Steam controller, to have been my favorite D-pads. Now that's still up for contention. I'm not sure which I like more, but we're going to be exploring that. And then also just a general overview of the rest of the buttons and ergonomics and things like that. First, though, let's talk about price. So, Steam controller, $99. And unlike pretty much any retailer ever, it is actually $99 even, not like $98.99 or $99.99. It's just $99. So, kudos to Valve for that. The 8BitDo Ultimate 2, the standard price is $59.99, so $60. I actually got mine on sale for $48, so that's actually a really good price for all the features that this does have. And then the Pro 3 is $69.99. Nice. So right away, even if we're just looking at the Ultimate 2, even just the base price of $60, that's still $39 cheaper than the Steam controller for a lot of similar features. Get the TMR thumbsticks, good D-pad. Not for back buttons, but you have the two buttons on the back and then also two extra shoulder buttons. It's the exact same on the Pro 3, whereas the Steam controller is just 4 back buttons. You do not, of course, get the trackpads. You don't get the capacitive sensors in the thumbsticks or on the grips. So now, before we jump into games and also Steam input related stuff, I want to talk about the ergonomics a little bit. So when I first got the Steam controller, I had most recently before it used my DualSense controller a bit more, and I think the DualSense is still a bit more comfortable, but the Steam controller is significantly more comfortable than the 8BitDo controllers, especially the Ultimate 2, bit less so with the Pro 3. If we just look at them side by side here, you can see that the Steam controller is taller. I think they're probably about the same width, though. Yeah, about the same width. Steam controller is taller. Of course, it has to accommodate for the trackpads. It also means that the grips are taller. And don't know how well I can actually show this, but the angle of the grips on the Steam controller is also wider. One common criticism for the 8BitDo controllers is that the grips are like straighter, which with how close your hands are when holding a controller like this can quickly get uncomfortable if you're like doing a tighter grip. The Pro 3 is a little better because the Pro 3 is wider than the Ultimate, but the grips are still pretty straight like on the Ultimate 2, but overall I think that the Pro 3 is actually more comfortable. So yeah, the Steam controller might look big and bulky, but it is actually very comfortable. Let's talk software. To reiterate, I do not use Windows. I am on my gaming PC. This is the latest SteamOS beta. We're going to start with the Steam controller settings here. Before we get to direct comparison between this and the 8BitDo controllers, I want to mention that the Deadzone settings for the Steam controller here are a little weird. It's like super marginal press of it, and you can see that like just barely even tilting the thumbstick. Let me get movement. If I set the Deadzone back to default and just hitting the set default button, not adjusting the slider from that point, we go back into game. Have to tilt it obviously farther than we did a bit ago. Go back into the settings. So what I'm going to do, if you change the slider at all, so that was 4200 now above the default of 4096. Yeah, I have to push the stick less before she starts moving. You saw I set it to 4200. This is more sensitive than the default though, which is a lower number. So I don't know what's going on with the settings for that, but yeah. This isn't even relevant to the comparison, really. I mean, it kind of is, but not really. But it's just, there's something weird with the Deadzone settings for the Steam controller. Anyway, 2000 Deadzone on the Steam controller does not equate to 2000 Deadzone on the 8BitDo controllers, and I'm pretty sure that comes down to the how things are by default that normally you'd be able to configure in the 8BitDo Ultimate software, or well, in this case, Ultimate 2 software, I think, which I'm on SteamOS. I can't use that. So this is going solely based on like the defaults, with the sole exception of I did have to go and borrow a family member's Windows laptop to update the firmware on this, because with the latest firmware, this actually does have a Steam Input compatible mode over the dongle. The Pro 3 has that out of the box through Bluetooth. But the upside of the Steam Input compatible modes is you get full analog triggers and a gyro. So you don't get that in the other modes. There's some quirks with the Steam Input compatibility on the Ultimate too. I'm going to lift this off the dock, and you'll see that we are currently in X input mode. So if you ever unplug the dock and then plug it back in, this will just go back into X input mode. To go into Steam input mode, you hold down the B button while you turn the controller on. And then now you'll see on the overlay here, the little button in the bottom left, that is actually the 8BitDo's home button, so that's how you know that you're in Steam input mode on the 8BitDo controllers. Like on the Steam controller, you can see that I have everything set down to 2000, and we're going to see when I actually see movement. Yeah, so I don't know how well this is actually translating across visually, but I can tell you, I'm definitely having to tilt the stick a lot more before we actually start moving. Was much less on the Steam controller. Like significantly more on this. And they're both set to 2000. So what I'm pretty sure is the issue here. 2000 in the Steam input settings for the Deadzones is not going to be as low as that seems because of the built-in Deadzone in the 8BitDo software. Which, if you're on SteamOS, say if you're watching this in the future and you have a Steam machine and you don't want to bother with Windows, hopefully your 8BitDo Ultimate 2 is on a new enough firmware that you can do Steam input mode. If not, that's tragic. But yeah, you don't actually get as low of a Deadzone as the Steam controller can get because of that. Which isn't the end of the world. Like it's still pretty responsive anyway. It's just if you want like super responsive, it's not going to be as responsive. All right. And before we get to the Pro 3, I just want to show this as well. When you dock the 8BitDo controller while it's in Steam input mode, and then undock it, it turns back on in Steam input mode. If you turn it off with the home button, and then you go to turn it back on, it goes back to X input mode. So the 8BitDo Ultimate 2 is very particular about how it remembers what mode you want it to go into. It'll only remember you had it in Steam input mode if you dock it and then undock it. If it turns off any other way otherwise, and you go to turn it back on normally, it will go back to X input mode. So, not the best Steam input experience with this controller, unfortunately. Alright, so then the Pro 3, this one I just use over Bluetooth because I could do wired for Steam input, but then I have a wire and that's not fun. So we just turn on with the start button, and then this will just go in and out of Steam input mode just fine, no problems.
Right there.
And like with the Ultimate 2, I do have this on the 2000 Deadzone as well. Now, with the Pro 3, push to the right a little bit, the Pro 3 is actually more responsive out of the box. Like you can see that I'm just barely pushing the sticks and it does actually respond very similarly to the Steam controller actually. The thumbsticks are also a little shorter on the Pro 3. So I'm not sure if the apparent less movement required from the Pro 3 is because of a smaller like default dead zone, or if it's just because the sticks are shorter. All right, I was going to save the gyro for later, but since we're already in Marvel Rivals, let's go ahead and talk gyro. So the Steam controller has several methods that the 8BitDo controllers do not have that you can use to activate gyro. You of course have the trackpads, and when you're touching it, you can have that activate gyro. Touching the thumbstick can also activate gyro, and then we also have grip sense.
There they are.
The 8BitDo controllers do not have that. So what I have been doing instead is sacrificing one of the back buttons, mostly this one, in order to activate gyro. Just makes sense because it also kind of emulates what you get with grip sense. I was doing this before the Steam controller came out, and it works mostly well. And as far as how the gyro feels, like
Another hit for
just going around in the practice range here at like this, I'm not feeling too much of a difference. Maybe it's a little less stable. Let's go down to the timed practice range, and we'll just do a quick little a couple of sessions here to just see if I perform any differently with the gyros between these. Yeah, this is going to be a simpler test. We'll just go with random normal 60 seconds.
4, 3,
And we'll just see how we do. So starting with the Pro 3, grip button for gyro.
there they are.
Okay, so right away, I don't know if it's just the shape of the controller compared to the Steam controller. I feel like I'm a little shakier with my aim. Granted, Bot Luna there is making things easy for me by running straight at me, so that's gonna skew the score a little bit. It might also be because this controller is not quite as heavy as the Steam controller, but yeah, I do feel like my aim is a little shaky, even though I am, you know, I'm landing a good number of hits, yes, but it just feels kind of shaky. Oh my god, missing easy hits now too.
Stars.
Okay, so 8 kill score, 12. Average-ish for how I normally do. Alright, so that's the Pro 3. Also though, because this is over Bluetooth, I think I am feeling a bit of the input latency that you get with Bluetooth with the gyro. It's like, that might be partially like why it feels a little shaky to me, because it's just not, it doesn't feel quite like it's keeping up with my hand movements. Let's go to the Ultimate 2. One thing with the Ultimate 2 versus the Pro 3, the back buttons are just a little bit easier to press, so that's kind of nice for using it for gyro activation, actually.
4,
Let's see how the
3,
gyro performs
2,
here.
1.
Yeah, I do feel like it's a bit more stable than the Pro 3.
What do I do
That's
for an
probably because we're on the dongle instead of over Bluetooth. Yeah, I think the gyro definitely feels more accurate on the Ultimate 2 here versus the Pro 3. I'm not necessarily more accurate, but the gyro feels better. And I think this and the Pro 3 weigh similarly, so I don't think that's as much of a weight difference. I think it is just the different connection method. Pretty sure my score is already higher too, and like that part of the score separate, the actual total score is based on like getting kills with headshots, which getting a lot of those actually, more than I normally do. Oop. Though I think Bot Luna made that one a little easy for me. So yeah, I think gyro on the Ultimate 2 does feel better, but that is, I think that's mostly because this is going through the 2.4 gigahertz dongle, much like how the Steam controller has its puck, whereas the Pro 3 was over Bluetooth, so that's going to introduce some latency. Ultimate 2, I do think wins for gyro between the 8BitDo controllers. So let's see, we got 9 kills, score of 33. I'm actually not sure that I'll beat that on the Steam controller. So in this case, of course, we have grip sense, not a button for activating gyro.
5, 4,
It's a
3,
bit less tactile feedback. You do get the rumble when you actually activate, though.
I put you on ice.
Right away, I am getting fewer headshots.
I should be singing lullabies. You seeing stars?
Though there is, of course, the RNG of how the bot decides to move. It's going to determine score and headshots and everything. But
I should be singing lullabies.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, nine KOs and 25. That's a pretty common average score for me. So yeah, technically higher score on the 8BitDo Ultimate too. And I will say, in actual gameplay, I'm not sure which felt better. It's actually really close between the two. Yeah, I think I'm gonna need to do more testing on that. All right, I'm gonna do a few more rounds of this with the Steam controller and with the Ultimate 2, and just kind of get a feel for which actually has a better feeling gyro. Part of it as well might also be the triggers, because there is a difference in resistance for the Steam controller's triggers and in the Ultimate 2's triggers. Though the Ultimate 2 has, I think, like, more resistance on its triggers. That's interesting if the Steam controllers are throwing me off more. Okay, so higher score but lower kills. Let's do a couple more rounds here. I'll do one more round so we can have like a best of 3 for each controller, I guess. So 36 score, 8 KOs.
There they are. I put you on ice.
How was that not a headshot kill? Okay. Alright, so 2 scores of 9 kills, 25, and then 1 of 8, 36 for the Steam controller. Let's go back and do the 2 more on the Ultimate 2. First one with this was 833, if I remember correctly.
See them? Right there.
You know what? Even though I do think that the Steam controller is more comfortable because of it being a little bigger, I feel like the smaller shape of the Ultimate 2 makes it easier to, like, hold on to. Okay, let's try it again.
4, 3, 2, 1. There they are. I should be singing lullabies. I put you on
Yes,
ice.
I feel like the main thing I'm noticing is, for some reason, my trigger presses, I feel like that's throwing the aim off less on this controller than on the Steam controller, even though this is a bit lighter than the Steam controller. Granted, that was a worse score,
2, 1.
but I think that's just
Right there.
me. Ooh.
I put you on ice.
Okay, I mean, now I'm doing worse, but... Yeah, I think just for some reason my aim is getting thrown off less with the trigger pulls on this controller than on the Steam controller. I did get a higher score on the Steam controller, technically, but... Yeah, I don't know, something about the Ultimate 2 here, just... It feels more accurate. Though, the scores show otherwise, but, like, it just feels... Let me go to the Steam controller one more time. Yeah, so, like, naturally, just when firing, the aim goes up left a little bit. Yeah, I don't know, that's interesting. Like, I don't feel like I get as much, shake with the Ultimate 2. Like, I feel like this run is going better. It's far as like how stable the game feels. I don't know, could just be my hands just being shakier on some of these. Like maybe I'm just physically not stabilizing myself as well. There's obviously also sometimes the times where the bot just decides to walk slowly backwards and make it really easy for me to hit, so yeah. Well, either way, I've shown you guys the scores already. You can see how similar overall I'm scoring with each controller here. So yeah, in summary, 8BitDo's Gyro in Steam input mode actually does hold up really well against the Steam controller. The Pro 3 loses some points because Bluetooth, but other than that, very close between the two. Very, very close. Let's move on to some more tests. Alright, and much like in the unboxing and first impressions video for this, we're going to be doing FF14 for more thumbstick testing, mostly for left thumbstick. We're going to go over to Kugane Tower again. And I swear that this and Marvel Rivals are not the only two games I play. I promise. I just use them for testing controller stuff a lot, because 14 here, good for thumbstick stuff, because jump puzzles, and then Marvel Rivals is like the only shooter that I play. So yeah, just like in the first impressions video, I do have this on minimum possible dead zone. Man, I did this off camera the other day when I first set this back to 2000 dead zone. I actually one-shot it, but you know, probably not going to believe me now because I'm definitely not going to on this trip because I'm recording it. That's always how it goes. You're recording something and then you just do worse. Usually, you know, when it's for the sake of like content creation, it's because you're also talking, and that's going to distract you from focusing on the task at hand a little bit. Mostly that's going to be an issue in like puzzly kind of oh my god, I am not going to miss that specific jump 1,000 times again like I did in the okay, there we go. Yeah, because you're talking and your attention is divided, so like you're not fully focusing on what you're trying to do, because your brain is doing two different things at once. Granted, I think it's also different parts of your brain that do like talking versus, I don't know, hand-eye coordination stuff. I'm not a brain scientist, I don't know this stuff, I just speak from what I see on the internet. But at least I have the self-awareness to very clearly point out I'm definitely not an expert. I'm just on the internet too much. Alright, so yeah, there we go. Minimal dead zone. Very responsive. That went way better than the first time in the first impressions video. So I'm definitely getting more used to these thumbsticks than the... Hello, random person. Alright, anyway. Lamp jump. Probably missed that. I didn't line that up well at all. Ow. Fuck. Right, so as before... Why was that the old Steam controller picture there? What the... Okay. So anyway, 8BitDo controller. Oh god, that actually feels so weird with the right thumbstick low like that. I've gotten so used to the Steam controller now. Oh man, so this is probably gonna go fine. I will say, this is also not even just a thumbstick test. We're also kind of reminding myself of the face buttons on the 8BitDo controllers. I'm going to talk more about those. We're going to talk about the buttons and everything more heavily in a little bit. But, yeah. We'll say right now, most of the buttons and all the other inputs on the Steam controller I do like more than the 8BitDo controllers. And a lot of that is because the 8BitDo controllers are kinda noisy with their button presses. Oop. See, you know why that happened is because I was thinking in my head, oh, this is going really well. I'm actually about to one-shot it on the 8BitDo controller. Despite the couple of small falls I had on the Steam controller. Nope. Nope. As soon as that thought entered my brain, I got messed up. I also just realized we still have jog mode active, so that's also throwing things off. Just a little bit. I could turn that off. I probably should, because technically it skews the results, but also this is more about overall thumbstick feel, not strictly the actual... What am I doing? Oh my god. I think I've gotten too used to the Steam controller sticks now. And then I'm going to go back to the Steam controller after using this and the Pro 3. Oh my, what am I doing? Who am I? How do I jump? How do I jump puzzle? What? Why do I do things? Okay. So in the case of this game, it can be a little nice. Oh my god, I thought I messed that one up too. Can be a little nice to not have the tiny dead zones. Then you have to be very explicit with like actually going for a movement and going for a jump. But on the other hand, trying to like inch my way forward on this is actually really nice when the dead zone is smaller. Because I'm trying to do a tiny movement. Then I might not be able to. Okay, back up here again. Alright, and let's see. I'm probably going to actually land the lamp jump this time. Did I speak too soon? No, I think we got it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. That went. Let's do the Pro 3. Get these sticks woken up. Oh, speaking of the sticks needing to, like, be kind of moved first before they're awake, so to speak. One bug that can occasionally happen on the Ultimate 2 is sometimes the sticks just don't work and I have to turn the controller off and back on again. Or like, they work, but it's like extremely delayed for the inputs to actually go through. It used to be more common, then like another firmware update seemed to like lessen it happening. But yeah, that's one issue with the Ultimate 2. I'm assuming it only happens in Steam input mode, but I don't try the other modes because I want gyro. So it might only be a bug with the Steam input mode, which wouldn't surprise me. I have not noticed it happen with the Pro 3. It seems to be specific to the Ultimate 2. I was literally just about to say, yeah, so far the Pro 3 does feel better because it feels more responsive like the Steam controller, and then right before I even opened my mouth, I had that fall. Never assume that you're doing well when you're doing like a semi-challenging thing like this. Another thing I'm noticing as I'm doing this climb and having to like do both movements with the left stick and the right stick, on the Pro 3, I think there's a bit higher resistance on the right stick than the left stick. I don't know if that's because of just how much I probably use the left stick more than the right for... It's not even really true though, because camera control is a very common thing too. I think I jumped past the lamp. Just barely. Okay. So yeah, so technically I think I had the best result with the Pro 3 here. Interesting. Anyway, yeah, I think the right stick has more resistance to it than the left. So that's the thing. Overall though, just regardless of actual results here and narrowly missing the lamp on the Steam controller, the feel of the Steam controller's thumbsticks is significantly better than the 8BitDo controllers. I like how the thumbstick caps are a little concave and how they're just very like nice and rounded, and just the material that Valve used for these sticks just feels much better than the than what the 8BitDo controllers use. Like, these just feel harder, I guess. Like, it's just a tougher material. It doesn't feel as comfortable. And they are similarly rounded and ridged on top, though. I don't know how well we can actually, like, see the texture on this, but, like, kind of like very similar shape. They're just convex instead of concave. So like the shape and everything is good. It's literally just the material used. The Steam controller feels better as far as materials. And then as for the other buttons, the 8BitDo controllers, their face buttons are way louder than the Steam controller. And like not only that, the different buttons have like different I'm not sure what the word for it would be, but like it's like these are like the face buttons on the Ultimate 2, for instance, like these are membraney buttons. The triggers though, or the bumpers, I mean, these are like mouse switch style, like they're very mouse clicky, kind of like the Steam Deck actually, but like just a different kind of thing than the face buttons. And then the D-pad is also like a clicky tactile D-pad. Then these buttons, I don't know if they're memory buttons or not, but they also have like a different feel than the other buttons, and they're just loud. So this is the Ultimate 2. This is the face buttons. This is the bumpers and the D-pad. And then the start and select buttons. And then the Pro 3, you know, very similar D-pad as the Ultimate 2. It's like a little tiny bit stiffer. These buttons, of course, are very soft. They're like very like classic SNES style. This is like silent, actually. The bumpers, a lot softer press, kind of more, a little bit more like the Steam controller. But then the face buttons on the Pro 3. Hate how loud these are. The face buttons on this thing, quite possibly one of the main reasons that I did not end up using this controller very much after I got it. The Steam controller, on the other hand, a lot of different buttons on this. The exception of the back buttons, which, by the way, okay, let me sidetrack for a second here. The back buttons on this, I think they do feel really good. They're be a little tiny bit loud. Actually, the back buttons on the 8BitDo controllers are probably, they are louder, a little clickier, but overall they do feel really good. I think the Pro 3s, ironically, actually has quieter back button than the Ultimate. Yeah, because these are like, they feel like less solid in their shell than the Pro 3s. These are quieter, actually, unlike the face buttons. Then the Steam controller, they're quieter than both. They also have like, I want to say similar resistance to the Pro 3, maybe a touch harder to press. Very similar, actually, very similar. Anyway, though, the rest of the buttons on this, like all of the other buttons and the D-pad are like membraney, but like not bad membraney. It's like everything's also nice and quiet. This is the bumpers. This is the D-pad. It gets louder when I like roll it like this, but just tapping individual directions. Much quieter. Rolling again. And the face buttons, like very similar feel, very similar noise level. The nice thing with the Steam controller is that like all of the different buttons have almost like the same kind of feel. So I appreciate the consistency with that, but I also appreciate how quiet it is in comparison to the 8BitDo controllers. These are like really clacky and loud, and it just makes them feel cheap. This feels way better. Now, as for the D-pad, let's get into a game. I've usually been doing Shovel Knight for D-pad testing. Let's do Hollow Knight, though, to actually change things up. Before I got the Steam controller, I was convinced that I wanted a more like clickier tactile D-pad like the Ultimate 2 and the Pro 3 have. and just 8BitDo's newer controllers in general. I think like the 2C has the same thing going on. And, you know, it does feel very accurate and like it's good. But for being a membrane D-pad though, the Steam controller's D-pad, it still feels really good. I think that the 8BitDo D-pads are probably more responsive. It's a very like, there's like no, how do I put this? There's no like extra give to it. It's either you activated the direction or you didn't. It's a very like mouse clicky, I guess. Which does feel good, but then like I just can't get over like it is kind of loud. It just makes it harder. It really does just make it harder to enjoy using. It is a shame because otherwise the D-pad does feel really good. It's just the loudness of it that bothers me the most. Compared to the Ultimate, I think positioning is definitely a bit better on the Pro 3. I will say though, it's like a touch easier to press on the Ultimate too, and the positioning is worse. But it's also a little quieter than the Pro 3. So I kind of like it more. If the Pro 3's D-pad felt like the Ultimate 2's, but was still, you know, still in the top left position, I think that would feel best to me as far as the 8BitDo controllers. And then back to the Steam controller. Yeah, I gotta say that I mentioned like the other 8BitDo D-pads, especially the Pro 3, feeling very much like there's not a whole lot of like extra give to it. Like you press it, and when you press it enough, it just activates. This is a membrane D-pad, but it still has like a really good tactile feel to it like that. So I think I have to give the win to the Steam controller. I've been on the fence between this and the 8BitDo controllers for a while, but I think the noise level for sure pushes this to the number one spot for me. Very close, but I like the quiet. And with that, I think that pretty much covers all the different inputs. Addendum Axel here. Other me forgot to talk about the triggers. We completely forgot to talk about the triggers. Okay, so Steam controller triggers are mostly good. Decent resistance to them, not terrible. However, a little bit clacky when you bottom them out. So I still like them, but while the Steam Deck does similar, I think I actually like the feel of the Steam Deck triggers a little bit better. But yeah, these are fine. These are fine. Now, the 8BitDo controllers, both of these have these little sliders in the back, so you can convert them to kind of Nintendo Switch style, like digital triggers instead of analog. So that's the normal, and then that's the digital trigger. So, you know, it's actually a pretty cool feature to have. Yeah, other than that though, just comparing like analog range to analog range to analog range, not too dissimilar from the Steam controller. Though the Steam controller is a bit more comfortable just with how my hands are when I'm gripping the controller. With this, you can see I'm like on the back edge of the trigger here, and so that's like I'm kind of like right along the edge of it when I'm pulling it down. With the Steam controller, my finger is like basically resting perfectly at like the back side of the trigger without like pulling on the edge of it. Plus the edge just feels like a little bit smoother. So Steam controller trigger definitely more comfortable than the Ultimate 2's. The Ultimate 2 is quieter when I bottom it out, though. It's like the one input on this thing that's quieter than the Steam controller. Good job, Ultimate 2. You actually wanted something. Congratulations. And then the Pro 3, I think like the initial resistance is similar, but then like bottoming out on the triggers is like, I guess mushy would be kind of the right word, but yeah, they don't feel, no, they're not longer. They're actually very similar shape to the Ultimate 2, but for some reason they do feel more comfortable. It might just be like how just the shape of the controller in general. Let me see. Yeah, the grips are, I think they're, yeah, it does like kind of angle more than the Ultimate 2. Yeah, because I'm trying to hold these like with the grips kind of lined up. You can see that the triggers on the Pro 3 are like angled back more like that way. Interesting. So yeah, I would say that the triggers in the Pro 3 do feel more comfortable than the Ultimate 2. Digital mode, much more like a mouse click. Let me do the Ultimate 2 again. So this is more like a button click. Also has a little bit more travel to it than the Pro 3. And then that's much more like a mouse click. Yeah. So I think comfort-wise, the Pro 3's triggers are definitely better than the Ultimate 2. But I do like that the Ultimate 2 is quieter when it's in digital trigger mode. This is just mouse clicks. Oh, I didn't talk about really much about the shoulder buttons either. The extra ones on the Pro 3, very similar to when the triggers are in digital mode. It's like the same kind of mouse click kind of thing, whereas the Ultimate 2 is very similar to the bumpers, actually. So here's triggers, extra shoulder buttons, and bumper. Yes, I don't know how well the difference in sound comes through over the microphone, but this is like a louder click, or at least higher pitched click. So anyway, I usually just keep them in analog mode because, you know, there are some games like shooters like Marvel Rivals and other stuff where like it's probably beneficial to have them in digital mode because then you're theoretically not gonna like throw off your aim as much when you pull the trigger. But yeah, I kind of just leave those in analog anyway. And then Steam controller triggers, again, the resistance is good and it does feel like even throughout the whole pull, but like these triggers sound worse than the 8BitDo ones. So yeah, that's probably like the one thing that I would say the 8BitDo controllers are kind of winning in here is I think the triggers are a little nicer on the 8BitDo controllers. Still good on the Steam controller. I think I do like the 8BitDo ones a little better. So I do want to reiterate that while overall the Steam controller is the clear winner for me as far as ergonomics, how the buttons sound and feel, and different gyro actuation methods. I didn't even really talk about the trackpads a whole lot in this video because, well, none of the other competition really has good trackpads. But despite all of that, you know, the 8BitDo controllers are still really good for the price. So if you don't care about the trackpads, if you don't care as much about gyro and having good actuation methods for it, the 8BitDo controllers are still really good for the price. You do still get pretty good TMR thumbsticks. The caps don't feel as nice as on the Steam controller, but they work, and they work well. They're pretty good. They even have like these little, I didn't even talk about it before, but they have these little like metal like anti-friction rings here, which even without these, the Steam controller does still feel really, really nice and smooth and everything. But like, yeah, these are kind of cool. So other than the caps, like the sticks themselves, like using the thumbsticks on the 8BitDo controllers, that is absolutely a highlight of these controllers. Even if I do prefer the Steam controller is also like between $30 and $40 more, depending on if you're looking at the Ultimate 2 or if you're looking at the Pro 3. I would still love to see an 8BitDo Steam controller, much like how we have the HoriPad Steam controller. I think 8BitDo could probably do something really good. because, you know, they do have good gyro in here. And 8BitDo has already been doing the like charging dock thing, kind of like how the Steam controller has the puck. So, I mean, really good option, realistically. For me though, I've already been saying it pretty much throughout this whole video. I do love the new Steam controller, and this is pretty much gonna retire both of those 8BitDo controllers for me, because this just does everything they can do, but better. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let me know if you agree or disagree with the things that I said in this. If there's any questions that I did not really answer in this comparison, feel free to ask in the comments below. If you enjoyed this and want to see more, make sure to leave a like. If you really want to see more, also consider subscribing. Till next time, this has been Axel. Thank you guys for watching. The next video, the next Steam controller video, I think we're going to be taking a look at the new Steam controller versus the original Steam controller. I might also include the HoriPad Steam controller in that. I'm not sure yet. I don't think that one deserves its own video. I really don't think it does. Sorry, Hori. But yeah. I think next time we might do a battle of these Steam controllers. But we'll get to that in the dedicated video. Anyway, that's it for this one. Goodbye.